And that, my friends, is the bench press. What's going on, guys? We are here at Calgary Barbell. We've been asked a couple times now to film some other lift tutorials like we did with the deadlift. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna go through the bench press. Now the way I break it down is I have 5 sort of segments to it. So the first is gonna be your setup, and it's of the utmost importance. The next thing is gonna be the unrack, which is something I feel people often overlook. The next is gonna be the descent. The fourth is gonna be the pause, or the chest position on your chest rather. And the fifth is going to be the actual press. First things first, we need to get set up for the bench press. The way you set yourself up sets the tone for the rest of the lift, so make sure we're doing it right. The first thing I do is I set my grip. I find once I'm connected to the bar, once my grip's set, I can actually use the weight of the bar a little bit, pushing and pulling to help me set my shoulders. We're not gonna talk too much about grip width, because that's something that's going to be very different from person to person, and something that I can't necessarily give you any hard and fast rules for. So you're gonna have to find your own grip width, but I will give you some tips on how to grip the bar. So for myself, I like to take the bar low in the palm. So you see a lot of people take the bar at what I feel is too high in the palm. Now that's gonna end up putting the bar back behind the wrist, and generally the elbows are gonna get over tucked. You can end up with some issues in terms of wrist and elbow tendonitis in the long term, and you can also end up in just a poor position for pressing. So to get set, I lay down, and I'll actually take a little bit of an internally rotated grip to get that weight in the right part of my palms where I like it. I'll grab the bar, and then I'll kind of crank in, so my wrists are now more neutral as opposed to internally rotated at the shoulder. So we'll set the grip, and then I'll actually push it back into the rack, and I'll pop up to set the upper back next. When I'm setting my upper back, I'll scooch myself down the bench towards my feet, then I pull the shoulders together, and then push from my feet, keeping the shoulders together to drive the shoulders down. So those are the 2 biggest things we want to think about in our shoulders, is pulling them together and then pulling them down towards your butt. When you're in the right spot, you should feel most of the pressure of your body weight at this point on your upper traps. Then what you want to do is set your butt down, keeping your shoulders tight. You see a lot of people go like this, and then everything flattens out. You've just essentially sabotaged your own setup. So, shoulders pulled in, push up to drive the shoulders down, keep them tight as you set your butt down. At this point, I'm pulling on the bar to tighten my lats and drive my chest up as I set my butt down. Then I'll set my feet. For myself, I'm trying to get my feet back a little further because I had some issues with my butt coming up off the bench at my last meet. So there, we're essentially set up. So the next thing I want to talk about with the setup is going to be leg drive. I try to maintain consistent leg drive, pushing me this way towards my head up the bench to keep me on my traps, to keep me in position, to keep my chest up, limit the range of motion, all that good stuff. You'll see a lot of people sink into their chest a little bit and use leg drive to kind of bump the bar back to get the press started. I don't advocate that, because I find unless you're really advanced and you've been using that technique for years and years, it can lead to some pretty inconsistent presses, because you essentially have to get the right amount of leg drive to put the bar in the right place and then catch it at the right point to press through and follow through. Once we're set up, is we need to unrack the bar. So there's a couple mistakes I think people make here. The first one is getting loose as you unrack. So there's a couple different ways that people do that. Either we'll roll the shoulders out and then come out, or we'll press too hard or press too much out of the rack so that it jolts things, and we're essentially losing the tension from the setup. Most importantly here is you maintain the tension from your setup to get the bar into position. That's the objective here. So you'll notice when I unrack my bench press, breath, just triceps to unrack, it's just enough to clear the hooks, and then we pull the bar into position. That's the next thing I'm going to talk about, is pulling the bar into position. Essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to move the bar down the body to the point where the lats start to engage, the shoulder blades sink even further from their setup position, and it drives the chest up and forces as much extension as we can get through the upper back. You'll know this because you'll be able to feel your lats start to contract, your back will get tighter, and the bar will start to feel almost weightless at that point, like you could kind of hold it there for as long as you want it. So I'll show you an example of what my unrack looks like. So we're set up, big air, pop with the triceps, pull into position. So the next thing we're gonna talk about is the descent of the bar to your chest. The two major points here that I wanna make note of are gonna be where the elbows are tracking and where you're touching on your chest. So with the elbow tracking, we essentially want a nice stacked position, hence the position we took with the bar in our hand. We want a nice stacked position through the wrist, through the elbow. You see a lot of people over tuck or under tuck, meaning too much or too little external rotation in the shoulder. And that's gonna put you in a position where you're straining some of the supporting muscles, or you're just not gonna have a lot of power. We always want nice stacked joints. Now, you're gonna get to a certain point in the lowering phase where you're gonna start to feel a lot of tension across the chest. And what a lot of people do incorrectly is they dodge the tension and they dump lower. Now again, this goes back to that sink and heave versus constant tension kind of bench press. For the constant tension crowd, we're gonna wanna pull down. When we get to that point of tension, we essentially wanna try to drive the shoulders back further, bring the chest up further, and lower the bar as little as possible, but pulling the bar in. We wanna be actively almost rowing the bar to the chest. That last little bit of range of motion. So very, very strong back contraction, driving the chest up to meet the bar, keeping everything nice and tight all the way to the chest. So again, set up, grip, upper back, butt down, feet planted. Unrack, we're gonna have breath, pull into position. Now, lowering phase, elbows stay under the bar, find the tension, pull in, back as tight as crap, and it's cramping, and I can't hold it. But that's the kind of tension you want. To show you guys what we don't want to do, I'm gonna set up again. Okay, now, so if you come down, we start to feel a tension around here, and a lot of people will touch lower, and then we sort of lose it. Bars out in front of the elbows, and we have to do a little bit of almost a front delt raise to get the bar back in a position and press through. We want the press to stay a press. We don't want it to turn into a front delt raise. So we need to load up the pecs and press. The very last phase of the lift is going to be the press itself. If we were to press straight up from the touch point on the chest without bringing it back over the shoulder, we're gonna end up out in front of the shoulder. We're gonna have significantly worse leverage down there. So what we wanna do is we essentially wanna bring the bar back over the shoulders as the first part of the press, and then we wanna press straight through to lockout. One of the mistakes I see people make with the pressing back over the shoulders movement is I see people press back over the shoulders, but then the bar continues back up over the face kind of thing. So we end up in this position where we're totally internally rotated, the shoulder blades have lost their position from the setup, and you're not in a good position should you need to do more reps. So the bar path we're looking for is to the chest, back over the shoulder and up. To the chest, back over the shoulder and up. What we don't want is to the chest, back over the shoulder, back. As you can see, wildly out of control there. The other thing we don't want is down and press out. Because again, we're losing leverage there. So with the last portion of the lift, with the lockout, the biggest thing we want to be conscious of is still maintaining position. We want to be keeping those shoulder blades in position throughout the entirety of the lift. We don't want to be getting to the top, locking the triceps, and then having the shoulders follow through. Again, especially if we're doing more reps. Less important on a single, as long as we get the lift, but more important on a set of reps, because if we get to the top, we lose position in the shoulders, we're gonna be screwed for our next rep. So the biggest thing that I think about to help me ensure that my lockout stays tight is to just lock with the triceps. So we get to the top, keep the shoulders in position, squeeze the triceps to lock out. That's gonna straighten the elbows, you're gonna get those white lights from the judges, and it's gonna prevent your shoulders from popping out behind the bar and screwing you up for your next rep. So that's it for the bench press. If you have any questions, if there's anything I didn't cover or you wanna know more about, feel free to ask in the comments below. Make sure you hit that like button, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for tuning in, guys.